Welcome to Songwriter Souls. This is John Rawlings, and I'm here with my good friend,
Geoff Reid.
Geoff Reid. So, Geoff Reid, you are a fascinating character here in Nashville. But I want to start out with a little bit of your history first.
All right.
Tell us a little bit about how you started in songwriting and where you are today. Kind of take us through that journey.
Okay. Well, I played music my whole life, pretty much. One thing or other. I played trumpet in school, and
Nice.
I went to work at a music venue when I was 14 as a dishwasher, mainly because I wanted to work there because it was a music venue, and they would let under 21 work there because
Right.
they serve food and they served everything. So I went to work there and worked there through high school. I went to college on a full music scholarship, University of Southern Mississippi, for trumpet.
Very cool.
But I had started playing guitar when I was a teenager, a little bit, later teens, and writing songs a little bit. Played in the band at the venue I worked at for a few years, and had people telling me you should move to Nashville back then. And I'd never been to Nashville, so I took a little vacation to Nashville, come up, check it out, about 92.
Mm-hmm.
Went back to South Carolina, a little small town I lived in, and my focus from that point on was how to get here. So I started saving a little bit of money, and making a few more trips up to check out, meet people, look at areas where I could live and what I could do for a job and everything. And in '93,
Called survival.
survival. At '93, with my first and last month's rent, $175 left, I moved to Nashville.
Uh-huh.
Went to work right off the bat for Nashville Palace was my first job here, John A. Hobbs, and it was a great experience.
Awesome. So you've got a background in music, so
A little bit
in trumpet, right?
trumpet, yeah.
And so you talk about coming to Nashville.
Well,
and
trumpet and
converting.
guitar. I mean,
All right.
I was already playing guitar.
Very
I
cool.
mean, trumpet was a thing that I had started when I was like 12 years old and playing in band. I wanted to play an instrument, and my parents wouldn't buy me an instrument. And I had a band director I went and talked to when I started like sixth grade. I had some friends that joined the band, and I went in and said, I want to play an instrument, but I don't have an instrument. And he goes, well, we've got some, loaners we can give. You want to play trumpet? And I said, sure. So I became a really good trumpet player. But, I bought a guitar in high school and started teaching myself chords, and learning to play. And I had a friend that was, his dad had been a songwriter here in Nashville, and had written a pretty big song for Red Sovine called Teddy Bear. But his son was playing in the band bass in the place that I worked at. And so he started teaching me some chords, and we'd get together, we just play and everything like that. That's how I kind of morphed into the band. They brought me in to do the new stuff, which was Alan Jackson and Travis Tritt,
Right.
and all the people that were, in the late '80s, early '90s taking off. But
All the people I heard in school.
the people you heard in school, I mean, the trumpet, is a weird thing because I haven't played it in 25 years probably. But the trumpet got me a music scholarship, so I went down to Southern Miss, and I decided that wasn't what I wanted to do. I didn't want to be a band director or a music teacher, and so I moved back home. My parents weren't happy about that, but I told them I want to make music, but I don't want to be a teacher. So my mom was not very pleased when I said I want to move to Nashville.
Yeah, a big change, right?
A big change.
And so you came from a small town. How big was your small town?
Well, I don't even know how many thousand people, but
Definitely smaller than Nashville, right?
we had a Hardee's.
Oh, we had a So when I moved to Northport,
Nothing else. When I
yeah,
was
we had
growing
a
up.
Wendy's and a McDonald's. So I had one restaurant more than you did.
We didn't get a
So-
McDonald's till after I moved from there,
Wow.
man. So it's pretty small.
Yeah, so coming from a small town to come into Nashville,
Oh,
what did it take you to network? How did you start networking
man.
back in the day?
I was real lucky, and this is the truth. one of my first trips up here, I had a lady that was I had a manager at the time kind of working with me a little bit. And one of my first trips to Nashville, she took me out to a place called the Broken Spoke. And the Broken Spoke at that time was just a dance hall saloon. But the house band in '93 was Daryl Singletary and the Hot Flash Band, and it was just a great place for country music. There were no bars on Broadway. I mean, I think maybe two, Tootsie's and
Totally different.
The Wheel. Yeah,
totally different look.
You didn't go to Broadway.
Right.
Broadway was, a lot of XXX stores and stuff like that. So all your places that were popular were on the outskirts. And the Spoke was on the outskirts. It was Trinity Lane, not far from downtown. But it was the best feel of a dance hall saloon kind of place around town. In '95, the owner started building out a back room off the back. It was in a hotel, but he built a back room that was a songwriter cafe, and they opened it in, I think, '96. And that's where I met most of the guys that I'm still friends with today, and even write with several of them still today from that era. Prior to that, there were several writer cafes around town. There was the Boardwalk, there was the Courtyard, there was the Bluebird. I mean, there was one in Hendersonville called the Bell Cove Club. That's where I live, and I've lived for a long time. And, I walked into that place, and right off the bat, I met a couple guys, Larry Johnson and Craig Martin. I started having a conversation with them, and they had just had a song. They wrote at the bar there, a couple years prior. Ended up getting recorded by Tim McGraw called Don't Take the Girl.
Wow.
And I became friends with these guys, and I think networking, some people come at it for the wrong angle or from the wrong angle. Like, I think networking is about, becoming friends with these guys,
Right.
And learning how they do it. I used to drive to the Bluebird, my first few years living in town, I drove to the Bluebird 3 times a week. Even if it was for the free show, the early show, back then you could see, you might see your Chuck Cannons or your Gary Burrs or your Victoria Shaws, or you name it. You saw some of the best writers in there, and I wanted to learn, how they were doing it. I wanted to learn the way that they created that verse and how they, created that story. And, some of that's lacking today, but still, those guys, they knew how to craft a song. And so I wanted to go out there as much as I could. I will say the very first writers night I ever went to in town was a place called Douglas Corner. I met a guy that was from back home where I was from, kind of, and his name was Zach Turner. And at that time, he had a group called Turner Nichols. Him and Tim Nichols had a band. And he was from Easley, South Carolina. And he said, you need to go check out Douglas Corner. So I went to Douglas Corner. And, Douglas and Bluebird were the two, in my opinion, and in my book. And man, the writers that just played Douglas, you never knew who you were going to see there play. And it was a very small, quaint little room. Mervyn always had great sound in there, and it was just always a good time.
Well, you talk about the songs, and even your language changes a little bit when you talk about the history versus today. What's the change for you that you see that happened in what was written back in the day to now?
Well, I see it coming back. I see some of the way songs are being written. Content changed for a while, and you're going to have people that say bro country and this and that. I don't really look at it that way. I just think, somebody recorded something and it was fresh and new and hip, and it caught on, and it brought in a new audience of younger people. And I mean, everything's about sales and money and demographics
100%.
and all that. So let's say somebody records a song and it's, very popular. Everybody's trying to recreate that. I remember being in a publishing company one time, writing with a friend of mine, and there was a song that was just, it came out and it was killing it. And I remember the plugger walking in and said, "We need another song like that." So when something's hot, they start trying to, and to a degree.
Well, do they try to duplicate?
Well, I think they follow in a trend.
Yeah.
I mean, everything changes. I mean, people that say, well, country's not what country was. Well, guess what? They didn't like Dolly Parton when she came out.
Right.
She was too pop for country.
Right.
So was Glenn Campbell. So was Ronnie Millsap.
Yeah.
And you listen to those
And
guys. Those guys are country.
Yeah.
Those are country. But when they came out,
100%.
They didn't look at them as country. They shunned them a little bit. Country is always evolving, and I hear all different forms of it in here. Look, if you had told me, I had a friend that was playing some stuff for me at parties for a year. It seemed like saying, listen to this guy. And I was like, well, yeah, but he's not country. And, and then he signed him and he turned out to be Jelly Roll. So,
who is touring all over the place right now.
He's selling tickets. He's
That's
huge.
it.
So you can't look at it and say, well, it's not country. It's not this. It's not that. I think country is a little bit of everything. I think you get the traditional side of it. I think what's changed more than anything is production. I think content-wise, I think there's content that's still there. That's great. That tells a story. For a little while, the story songs went away a little more, and it became more about the beat. Yep. And the music and the feel a little bit, not necessarily all the way, because there's great. You listen to an album, you might get that one big, song, but if you listen to that whole album, there's some great stuff in that album.
There is.
And people don't listen to albums anymore.
They don't.
So it's a total different thing. But I think the biggest change in 30 years of it was kind of content. But like I said, I've seen over the last 5-6 years content becoming more important again.
Well, and that's really important though, to have and you talk about changes.
Yeah.
You've now established yourself as a bar owner
Right.
with the local,
Right.
and kind of tell us a little bit about why you did that, and I know you've told the history a little bit, but what's your influencers there to make the local the spot?
Well, I'll tell the story. I won't name names. I was playing a venue. It was a Saturday night show, a big venue in town for songwriting. And I basically called and said, can I get a +1 for my wife? And they said, no, we don't have any available seats. So I went and played the show with friends of mine. And, they were sold out. There was a group of like 30 nurses or whatever that were there for the show. And in my head, I kept saying, I'm playing this show. I would like my people to be able to come see me play this show. But I couldn't get any of my friends or anybody that I knew in the show. So part of it was I wanted to create a place where if you were playing, your people could come see you play. Mm-hmm. And it didn't necessarily have to be a ticketed show. They could just come see you play, do your show, and create that kind of environment, that had that same feel of some of the other places around town. But, really catered. I try to cater to the songwriters, to the artists, so that, what they're doing, their people can come see them. I also wanted to create a place, again, I'll be straight up. There was a place that me and all my friends met. All the hit writers and great people in the business that I still know today, almost all of them, I met at this place called the Broken Spoke. It was owned by a couple different people, and it kind of, floundered around for years and years and sat there, and then they tried to revamp it again, and it didn't work, and they ended up bulldozing the building. But that place just had this feeling when you went in there. It was a great place to network. It was a great place to meet writers that were just on a different caliber. And I don't think you met Chris Wallen yesterday, known Chris since before he moved to town, and he said it when you were talking with him. He said there was just something about that room that no other place in town had. And the songwriters weren't going there to sell tickets and get paid. They weren't going there for any reason but to go out and play their stuff and let somebody hear their songs.
Right.
And you had hit songwriters from Whitey Schaefer to, Tony Lane first started coming in there in early, probably 96, 97. Anthony Smith, James Otto, Chris Wallen, Aaron Barker's, people like that. For some reason, they were drawn to that place. And it wasn't in the best area of town. It was smaller than this room.
Right.
It wasn't a big room. But they were drawn to that place for some reason. And it went out of business in the early 2000s. Somebody new bought it, and it didn't work. And for years, there was really nothing around town. I mean, you had the Bluebird, and the Bluebird is great for what it does. There's no problem with the Bluebird. Bluebird is a great venue, and it's everybody's pinnacle. But for years and years, there was nothing really around town. There weren't a lot of writers' nights. There were a couple hotel places that were doing writers' nights.
Right.
And I just thought, I thought this town needed a place. I felt like it needed a place that really cared about the songwriters and cared about, the young guys coming up that really, needed a place to play, needed a place for people to be heard. There's an argument on both sides. I've heard, and I, from a hit songwriter, I had a discussion one time about playing places for free, and it's a long story, but he got into the whole people just wanting you to play for free, and I said, look, there are places that I feel like that you go out and you play and you get something out of it, and I felt like I wanted to build a place where if you came, the people in that room are listening. The people in that room are the ones that are paying attention to what you're doing, and they're maybe the ones that you end up co-writing with. It may be the ones that are about to get the next deal in town.
Yeah.
And a place where everybody can hang. And I hate the term networking.
Right.
Because I feel like it's more about the hang. It's more come out, hang out, meet people,
Be part of it.
be part of it. Networking feels like a job.
Right.
I never thought of it as networking. I was just going out to hang out with my buddies and see who new kid might be in town.
You're still doing that now.
I still do it.
You're doing that here.
I still do it.
You
I do it here.
created
I do it other places.
Yeah.
I go over to Losers, the owners of that place. They're friends of mine. I go over there to hang out with them. And again, they've got great live music over there. I'm a proponent of great music places in this town. I'm not trying to compete against them. I'm trying to do my thing the way I want to do it. But I'm for the great venues and the great music.
So I think that's the key to this whole thing, is that you're part of it, and you're part of the culture that's here.
Yeah.
And that went away, and then you helped bring it back with the local.
Well, I don't know if I helped bring it back, but I certainly.
Well, you gave that meeting spot again.
Well, it gave a spot for people to kind of meet up and kind of, again, it's. I think it serves a purpose. You get everything from showcases to number one parties here.
Right.
We did a showcase last night. Young guy Will
Which
Jones.
was fantastic.
Fantastic. I promise you, within a couple of years, you're going to hear him on the radio.
Without question.
Maybe sooner than that.
Yeah.
You're going to hear Will Jones on the radio. That's happened time and time and time again here. Callista Clark, Lauren Weintraub's, and there's been countless people that did their showcases here that went on to record deals and have success. On the flip side of that, we've done number one parties. We've done number one parties for everybody from Jason Aldean to Cody Johnson to LV Shane to, we've done number one parties for a lot of people. And I think that BMI and ASCAP and CSAC have worked really well with us here. Those are your PROs in town that understand that I'm in it for for the business. I'm not just a bar owner. You might go play at another club. I would bet a lot of my money on it. Any other place you play in town, just about, I won't say any other place, but just about any other place you play in town, the owner was not a musician, a songwriter. That was his passion. That's what he wanted to do. And he didn't open it up for that reason. They opened it up to make money.
Money.
And, I said when I opened this place up, if I don't make money, as long as it pays the bills, I'm happy. And boy, the first year I lost money. The second year I didn't, and by the third year we were doing great. COVID hit, and that was a whole nother thing. But I knew after the first 6-8 months, we started turning the corner because nobody knew what we were. So I knew that it would pay for itself. I didn't open this to try and make a lot of money.
Right.
Honestly, I did a lot of research for years. I mean, I decided to do this, 8, 9, 10 years ago. And I had the opportunity to buy the Broken Spoke at one time. It scared me. But I did a lot of research that everybody said songwriters venues don't make money. That's why they charge covers and they charge food and drink minimums. And I remember having a discussion with somebody, and I said, it's because they haven't done it right yet. And, it took a lot of figuring out the first year of how to do it right. Because I didn't know, I didn't own a bar. I didn't own a music venue. I didn't know anything.
You knew music.
What I knew was I had some equity in my house.
Yeah.
And I borrowed against it. But what I did know was I knew songwriters.
Right.
And those songwriters, that first year, if you could go back, it's pretty magical. There, you had Geoff Reid, you had, Paul Overstreets, you had the guys that showed up because they heard, what we were trying to do. It's pretty. When I look back at it, I was looking back at pictures about a week ago on 2017, 2018. And man, there's some pretty magical shows in there. Some huge artists that people don't even remember that just came in and played. I remember I had a Saturday night show, 3 Hall of Fame songwriters, and there probably wasn't 10 or 15 people in here. And one of them came out to the fire pit outside after, and he sat down beside me, and he's the one that had booked it. And he said, well, how long do you think you last here? And I said, man, I don't know. I said, this is a Saturday night, and there's like 15 people here. And he goes, nobody knows this place is here. Nobody knows what it is, And I think there are a few people and a few things out there that put this place on the map. And there are a couple people out there that I can't say enough good about that put their name, on the line and came out here and did shows. And as they were starting to climb, number one is Ashley McBride.
Right.
I can't say enough good about her because when we were almost out of business during COVID, she said, I can't keep every bar in Nashville open, but I'm not going to let you close. And that was a very, very big thing. And she did. She came back when we opened back up. She came in, she did shows. Man, she packed the place out and she got us back open. I think when we opened back up, we had about $400 in our account. And that's the truth. Somebody started a GoFundMe that bought our food, liquor, and just the community. The community rallied around it.
The local was the local.
Local's local.
And
I hate to get like that, man, but
dude,
they literally rallied around this little venue and kept it open.
so you have a lot of emotion in this place before that happened. What has that done to the community now that the community has really been a pivotal part of keeping the heartbeat alive here? What does it feel like post COVID to you?
I mean, COVID changed things. There's no doubt.
Sure.
Um, you know, it definitely. And I would say this, man, that was the hardest year of my life. I mean, I was ready to throw in the towel. I actually put up a post and it said, "That's it, I'm done," because they weren't allowing us to reopen. I made a decision during COVID. It wasn't the fault of my employees, so I paid everybody through COVID. And I remember bringing everybody in, and I said, "Look, I've got enough money left to pay everybody this check and maybe one more. And if something doesn't happen and we don't get to reopen, then we're going to close the doors. I can't. I don't have any more money to draw from. I borrowed all that I could borrow, and but opening back up after COVID, um, I'm just telling you, man, the community came out. They showed up. They, like I said, I mean, your artists came in. Um, you know, your again, your Anthony's, your Anthony Smiths, your Chris Wallens, your Jeffrey Steels, your Ira Deans, and people like that came out and played shows for you. They came out because they knew, what you were trying to do, trying to keep this going. Some people took that we were trying to get back open and trying to keep this going as, there were different people that took it a different way. I mean, you had part of the business people that didn't want the bars back open, and you had the bar owners and the bar, and the writers and the artists and the bands that were starving, didn't have, gigs to play and stuff to do. I was just trying to get back open to save what I was trying to build here a little bit, and I was overwhelmed when we opened back up. We really were overwhelmed that the support was there, and it came from the industry. The music industry is really in this town a small community.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a big town, but the industry in this town is really small. Everybody knows everybody, and when somebody's down, they come out to help them.
So this place is actually the true songwriter's life too, because everything that this bar has gone through, you actually went through as a songwriter yourself.
Well, we all
with
went
the
through
struggles.
it. Yeah, we all went through it. I mean, it wasn't just.
And the new people do. They're going to go through the same.
They're going to go through it.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to go through it. I mean, this is not a 1-year town or 2-year town or 5-year town.
No.
I know people that it took 10 years,
Right.
15 years.
I'm going to tell you. You said something, and for the last 3 or 4 shows I've done, everybody keeps telling me it's a 10-year town. It's a 10-year town, and the funny thing is, you threw 10 years of thought process into this before it actually happened.
Yeah.
And so this is a 10-year venue.
It's
in thought process.
It's at least that. And I mean, the thing is, I don't even songwriter. I know songwriters that didn't get their first cuts until they were in their 40s. I mean, there's some hit writers out there that were in this town 20 years before they got a cut. I don't think that matters. I mean, I think you just got to write the song. I mean, it's not a good song. I mean, it's got to be a great song. It's got to be something that somebody's like, holy cow, man, that's unbelievable. And I don't think that's any different than this bar. I mean, it's I know a bar owner here in Nashville, and it's funny because he's very successful now. And in a conversation, he said, "Yeah, well, they didn't see the 3 bars that I built that failed before I had success."
Exactly.
Part of that's a learning process, and honestly, this place could have easily failed. That first year, I had to make a lot of changes. I had to look at why songwriter nights didn't work on, say, a Saturday night, because your crowd that comes into Nashville is different. Yes, we're the local, and most of our crowd during the week is local, but on the weekend, those artists are going out on the road, or they're playing gigs, or they're doing this and they're doing that. And so The one change I made was bringing in a band on the weekends. We would still do songwriter people or songwriters, and that could get up and play a little bit of originals and covers. And even the bands I bring in, if you look at the bands that I bring in, they're not just cover bands.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin Denny on Saturday night, Kevin had a record deal. That's Just Jesse, Cadillac Tears. That band, they've all played on the road. I mean, LD and Steve, they played for Randy Travis. Greg Cole played for Daryl Singletary. Joe Spivey has played on everybody's albums from Shania Twain to John Anderson, Seminole Wind. Those guys are the guys. They're the ones that created. They're not just some cover band that threw together that play on Broadway. And so I didn't want just your average, everyday, cover band. I wanted guys that were in the industry, that really were in it for being in it. Last night, those guys, Sam, Brandon, they play for Craig Morgan. Keo, I met 20 years ago, played for Rodney Crowd, plays for Big and Rich now, and people like that. Those guys aren't your Broadway band. Those guys are better than your average band.
Well, last night I thought I was listening to the radio.
Yeah.
I could just hear it.
And I know that they could make more money going to Broadway and playing, because there's an endless supply of people coming through, throwing money in a tip jar. Here, you're off the beaten path. The people that are here. They're only going to make X amount in tips, and it's a small venue, we can only afford to pay X amount per night out on music. I know that they could make more money down there, but I feel like here, they're here because of the music, not because of the money. They're here because, it's real.
Well, there is a difference.
There's a difference.
There is a difference. I've been inspired to do this show because the songwriter soul's part of the show is actually you.
Right.
You are the essence of the songwriter soul. I mean, you've now adjusted your life from songwriting. Do you still songwrite today?
I do.
See, so
I do.
you still got the love for the songwriting.
Right.
But your commitment now to expose songwriters differently than you thought of before is that adjustment that you had to make as an owner, community member, and the foundation for people to come in and play their music and feel the same way you did when you went to the Broken Spoke.
Right.
And as long as you have that connection, I think your heart's in the right spot. And if people can't tell, you were emotional over the outpouring from the support you have from this community.
Right.
And I think that's like the ultimate thank you back.
Right.
That I don't know how many companies actually could stand up and talk about what you talked about and how you talked about and the emotion that you put into that, and that what they did for you. And that's kind of a cool thing to have happen. And I will tell you, the first time I walked in, I felt like I was part of the family, and I was a total stranger to you.
Right.
And we talked the first night, and
well, that's our slogan: "Come a stranger, leave a local."
And guess what? We are locals now, and I love the fact that you are part of this and letting me interview you as part of Songwriter Soul, because I found that I found out more about you now than I knew before, and I was listening intently before.
Right.
And I think you're just a cool person looking to keep country music and songwriters part of the focal point.
Without songwriters, there's no music.
There is no music.
I mean, and it's all, at the end of the day, and I think this might be NSAI's slogan, it's all about the song. There's nothing truer than that. Without that hit song, there's no Garth Brooks without The Dance or Friends in Low Places. There's no, you could go through the list of every artist out there, and that song that was the turning point. And, that's, as a writer, that's what you're always shooting for.
Right.
You're always trying to figure out a way to write something that really draws something, out of people, and they're like, oh my gosh, that's the best thing. It's the same thing with this place. You want to hear that next song. You want to hear? Oh, holy cow! Terry Joe Box, Music Row Freak Show.
It's amazing.
It was amazing. They were doing it at another venue that closed down, and I reached out automatically and said, "You got to bring this show here. This is the place." And she said, "I had an offer at another place," and I was so bummed. And I said, "Well, when that doesn't work out,
Come back.
bring it here." And because I just felt like that was going to be the home for it. Porchlight Pickers, man, those guys bring in great writers. The Nashville tour stop we're doing here now. We're going to do a show called The Round. We've got multiple shows going on here every week, and you never know when you're going to see the next big thing, the next star, the next huge songwriter. For me, it's about the song. I really am a fan of the songwriter, of the songs. One of my favorite new guys out there right now as a songwriter, Russell Sutton. And I'm not throwing names out there, but Russell, I remember the first time he came in here and I heard his songs, and I'm like, man, this kid's going to be something as a writer. And I don't know if he'll be as an artist. I don't know if he wants to be an artist, but his songs were just great. And Barrett Baber is another one. There's so many of them. Honestly, I could go down the list.
Sure.
Chris Sly, come in Porchlight, and there's so many of them in here that are incredible writers. They have publishing deals. They're on their way. They've had a number one or two now, and it's just continuing to grow. And I feel like this was kind of home for those guys. The same way that Broken Spoke was home for us guys.
Right.
That's what I wanted to create. And when I started it, I remember telling somebody that we were talking about it one day, and they said, and I said, man, this isn't a slow process. I said, you got to start building it and build it and build it and build it. And we might see a reward 5 or 10 years down the road where we've created that place and they actually are there, and they're actually playing, and they're actually starting to have that success. And that's when we get a reward, is when we get to see that happening. And this was the place. And that just, and that's what happened with the Spoke, and that's what happened to a degree with the Bluebird and with Douglas Corner.
Sure.
And all those places. It started, one thing happened after another. An artist got a deal, one got signed, somebody got a cut, and it elevated. And, we're starting to see that. You're starting to see the fruits of the labors here. You're starting to see the songwriters getting the cuts. You're starting to see the number ones come out of it. You're starting to see some of the artists that played here early getting their record deals. You're starting to see all that. Again, this is not a quick town. If you come here thinking you're going to make it and you're going to be a star in a year or two, you got another thing coming.
Right.
Because
a wake-up call.
It just don't happen that way. It's 5, 10, 15 years.
Right.
It just doesn't happen quick.
And so if somebody were to come into this town new, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to them?
I hate the term network. I just don't like it. It sounds like a corporate term, but network, hang, go out, find the places. This isn't the only place in town. It's my place, but it's not the only place in town. But find the places where people are hanging. There are places that don't even have live music or songwriters playing, but they're great networking spots. Find those spots, meet people. Don't gurm, but go out, meet people, hang out, learn who they are, learn what they're about, learn, the business side of it to a degree where, you're not annoying people or,
Sure enough.
but become friends with them, learn them, get to know them, find people that you have something in common with. And
100%.
then, and a lot of times, if you're just moving here, so are 500 other people. Today.
Yeah, 100% today.
So the point is, find your group too.
Yeah.
You come up with there was a group of us that kind of hung together, wrote together, and kind of came up together. And most of them all had success in one thing or other.
I'm going to throw something at you.
All right.
Become the local.
Mm-hmm.
Don't market. Don't network.
Right.
But become part of the local. And then come play at the local when you're ready.
I think you just have to become part of the scene.
Yeah,
You have
100%.
you have to, again, the hang.
Yeah.
I've got one guy, he says it's the art of the hang. Part of it's that. just hang out. Just don't come in so anxious you're trying to, impress anybody. But hang. How do you get on the shows? People ask me that all the time. How do I get on this show? I emailed. Yeah, well, 500 other people did today or yesterday, or
Yeah.
sometime this week too. Whoever's hosting that show, come out, introduce yourself, meet the host of the show, listen to the people playing, then send them something. Let them listen to it, and let them. You get woven into it. You might get an early slot or a later slot, or on a Wednesday or a Friday or a Tuesday, whatever day. You eventually will get probably your day where you get a slot. I mean, you can't just walk into town and get it all.
No.
And
you got to earn.
There's a process.
You got to earn some. You got to build.
You have to earn it. It's a
good,
process.
strong relationship, but you got to be able to have the confidence
You
to
have
trust
to
yourself
build.
too, right?
This town is about relationships.
Yeah.
This town is 100% about relationships, and cultivating them the right way.
Right. Well, I really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to be part of this, and I'm going to have you back on and do an update sometime down the road. But in Nashville, awesome place to be, and you'll leave a local. I trust in that now because I feel like it.
Everybody's local.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
I just want to thank Tim Edmonds here tonight. Our company, Porch Light, has hosted this show. I don't know how long this has been going. It's been going a long time, man. I just want to thank Geoff and everybody here at the local for how great they've been to Porch Light. Mucho love. Thank you all for having me.
Mucho love, yeah.
Mucho love. All right, I'm going to do the last hit I had because it might be the last hit I have. Okay? Beer don't keep, love ain't cheap, trucks don't wreck themselves. Mama ain't a shrink, daddy ain't a bank, God ain't a wishing well. Money ain't rich, everybody sings, nobody wins in fight. Sometimes wrong is right. Learn the hard way, some read on the page, some comes from heartbreak, comes with age, and none ever comes easy. Maybe can't use, I know I don't probably know what I'm thinking, but there's something to some. Girls like to laugh, and tears don't last. Scares what praise for. When it's close, swing the bat. Everybody's got a pass, and love's worth living for. When we dance, we'll go till it breaks on the road. You first reach for him, and we don't get to do something. Some of it learn the hard way, some read on a page, some comes from heartbreak, stuff comes with age, and no, ever comes easy much. Maybe can't use, I know I don't probably know what I think. There's something to it. When you can't do slow, as time go on, it really makes you mad. Being true to her till the flash rings out. Some must learn the hard way. Some feed on the page, some comes from heartbreak. Oh, some comes with age, and none ever comes easy. But maybe can't use. I know I'm proud, I know what I think of you. There's something to some.
All right, thank you, Jimmy Miller.
Dad and my kids, by the way. He took them to Chuck E. Cheese for God's sakes, and I hate that place. And at the house, we've got a folded flag from the Marine Corps they gave us, and it's sitting in a mantle, in a picture frame on a mantle with his picture on it. And I used to get drunk, go handle the crown at night, and yell at it. And I came up with this idea that I wanted to write with my buddy James Kelly here in Nashville, and we decided to make it about a relationship instead about me and my dad, but you guys know where I got the idea from. Here's a song called Argue with the Walls. Walking through the halls of our old home, probably best not to be alone. Probably shouldn't have stayed till that last call, 'cause now I'm in the mood to talk. But there's no use talking to these frames of our good times, 'cause the problem with a picture is it only tells one side. Didn't we look so happy? Don't we? Don't you? I thought we were. I was wrong, and now that she's gone, I think I finally see her. Even though no matter what I say, she'll still be right. Yeah, I've had enough drinks, and it feels like it's a good day tonight to argue with the wall. I know that I could have listened more than everything that she was waiting for. Never knew we were headed for the storm. She walked out the door. I could stand here yelling at reflections all night long, but I know the only voices that I hear are gonna be my own. Didn't we look so happy? Don't we? Don't you? I thought we were. I was wrong, and now that she's gone, I think I finally see her. Even though no matter what I say, she'll still be right. Yeah, I've had enough drinks, and it feels like it's a good day tonight to argue with the world. I guess picture perfect isn't always what it seems. If I'd have seen that, then maybe she'd be here with me. Didn't we look so happy? Don't we? Don't you? I thought we were. I was wrong, and now that she's gone, I think I finally see her. Even though no matter what I say, she'll still be right. Yeah, I've had enough drinks, and it feels like it's a good day tonight to argue with the world. To argue with the wall. To argue with the wall. Thank you.